This one just hits different on vinyl. I continue to fall for this racket because it's true, and it's all for the love of music anyway.
Giant orange records.
A lot of people will hate me and think I'm a pompous asshole just for expressing my opinions. But you must understand, poor little me has been stuck listening to expensive, unobtainable records on streaming services. And before that, it was burned CDs and MP3 players. And before that, we had cassettes. Dropping the needle on these record store day reissues is about as close as you can get to hearing the music for the first time. All you need is a decent stereo and some yard sale speakers. There were 2 unobtainable records missing from my Psych collection, Gandalf's self-titled album from 1969 and the Rain Parade's Emergency Third Rail Power Trip from 1983. These records were released 14 years apart, but their similarities may surprise you. Neither received much attention when released. Both were reissued on Record Store Day 2024 on April 20th. My local record store, Sounds Good Music, still had these on the rack when I stumbled in an hour after they opened the doors. You're supposed to wait in line the night before to be able to find these limited Record Store Day titles. But I had an exhausting gig the night before and had a hard time getting out of bed that morning. We are now 16 years into the vinyl collecting frenzy known as Record Store Day. Among collectors, there's as much bickering as there is excitement. Some say the limited releases are a calculated money grab and they'll wind up costing more on eBay and Discogs. Some releases will sit around the used bins at record stores for years until the prices are slashed in half. Either way, you get to decide what releases to spend your money on and how much to spend. Record Store Day launched in 2008. Not many people gave a damn about vinyl in 2008. Brick and mortar record stores were closing left and right. There was also that pesky little Great Recession. But now, everything costs 2, 3, and even 10 times as much. Some consumers don't even own a turntable. And I say, good for them. You can hear the music if you stare at the cover long enough. Even in the last 4 years or so, my friends who didn't talk about vinyl all that much are now fully engulfed in the dangerous habit of collecting music on vinyl. Everyone seems to have figured out what I knew when I was 14. A record on a decent stereo with loud enough speakers will blow the lid off of any room. In those young and innocent days, you could still find Led Zeppelin records for as little as $4. But I digress. The cat is out of the bag, and the cat is turned into a tiger that wants your flesh and blood. But I say the vinyl renaissance is a good thing. It shows that people still care about music in this faceless age of streaming. But who could forget the Rain Parade and Gandalf? These were faceless bands to me until Record Store Day 2024. I'd never seen pictures of them until I looked at the back covers and the inserts that came with these albums. Because, like burnt CDs and copied cassettes and MP3s don't show you pictures of the bands. And they didn't look anything like what I might have expected. But you don't see posters of Gandalf or the Rain Parade like you see posters of Jim Morrison, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, the Grateful Dead, or Jimi Hendrix. These bands were not superstars, but they still made great music. And this is some pure record collector shit right here. This is why we love the hunt, because when it pays off, it ends up being worth the strenuous effort of jumping out of bed and flipping through the record bins. It is truly shameful how few streams these bands receive on Spotify each month. As of April 2024, it's a measly 9,891 streams for the Rain Parade and a somewhat more surprising 28,200 monthly streams for Gandalf. Those streams are for the band's entire catalog, not just these albums. I could honestly care less if the record color is a green splatter with yellow. It's known as lemongrass or transparent red and yellow, but in the right state of mind, this could add to the psychedelic experience. I see it as a practical way to distinguish these releases from the original pressings. I also didn't know I was supposed to care about record pressing plants until I spent too much time cataloging records I want to sell on Discogs. There were 3 original US pressings of the Gandalf album. One from Scranton, one from Los Angeles, and one from the Jacksonville, Illinois pressing plants owned by Capitol Records. The highest sale price on Discogs is a Scranton pressing that sold for $771.28 on March 29th, 2021. The 2024 Jackpot reissue has already sold for as high as $78 on Discogs. It retails for about $38. These records are here today and more expensive tomorrow. The emergency 3rd Rail Power Trip reissue has already sold for anywhere between $30 and $100 on Discogs. The reissue now sells for more than an original. It retailed for $35 at my local record store. But hey, at least you have the bonus disc and some interesting liner notes. 3 copies sold for $100 each before the end of April 2024 on Discogs. But I get it. Maybe some people don't want to wait in line because they got up way later than I did. Or maybe it's just the luck of the draw of me living in a town where only 2 other people care about obscure psychedelic records, and they might already have these or they might not care. Anyway, the Gandalf reissue was limited to 1,500 releases. Jackpot is an independent record store in Portland that now reissues vinyl. They did a stellar job reissuing the first West Coast pop art experimental band album, Part 1, in mono in 2023. Their reissues sound fantastic and look really cool. The same goes for the Rain Parade album, reissued by Label 51 Recordings. This one was limited to 1,000 copies. The original was issued on vinyl in the US by Enigma and sold for as high as $92.58 on Discogs on January 27th, 2024. Well, you may be wondering, how does this fit into my overall aesthetic perspective? How do you sift through all the bullshit and get to the good stuff? Are these masterpieces of rock that transcend the space-time continuum? Was their true worth not recognized until decades later, when the original pressings had become so expensive that the 2,000 people in the world who had heard it had to rush out to record store day to grab a slab of their psychedelic dreams? I'll let you ponder these questions. The Gandalf backstory is that they played at the famous Night Owl Club in the famous Greenwich Village alongside the famous Blues Magoos and the famous International Submarine Band. The not-so-famous Gandalf started off in 1965 as a British invasion-style bar band and evolved into a more Hammond B3-driven psychedelic rock group. They wrote some of their own songs. They covered a lot of Tim Hardin songs. Tim Hardin often hung out at the Night Owl. And who doesn't love Tim Hardin songs? Mostly people who haven't heard them, I suppose. Gandalf wanted to do for Tim Hardin what the Byrds had done for Bob Dylan, according to Gandalf guitarist Peter Sando. Gandalf were signed to Capitol Records in 1967 and recorded the album and made prominent use of an effect known as the Benson Echo Rec tape delay. Pretty cutting-edge technology for the time. The producers made them change their name. It went from the Raggoos to Gandalf and the Wizards. Capitol shortened it to Gandalf after the deal with their producers fell through. The album was recorded and shelved for more than a year until it was released in January 1969. By now, the band had broken up. No tour, no gigs to promote it. Another massive tragedy of neglect occurred next. Capitol Records put the wrong album inside the sleeve. Too bad they didn't use their Lemongrass vinyl. They would have known for sure then. Capitol also did not promote the album. This brought the Gandalf album to cult classic Great Lost Record status over the ensuing decades. The Great Sundays label issued the album on CD in 2002, which is about the time I heard of it and received a burned CD from a friend. The 2024 reissue is the first official re-release on vinyl to my knowledge. And those of us that read the hype sticker know the album was cut from the original master tapes by none other than Kevin Gray, who was one of the vinyl mastering geniuses of our time. The album starts off with Golden Earrings, a song Peggy Lee recorded in 1947. How eclectic. But the real treat, and if you only hear one song off of this album, is Tim Hardin's Hang On to a Dream, the walk down. Gosh, I love walk downs. It's so perfect with its mid-tempo pace, tape delay on the piano, and the reverb-soaked sighs, the drummer's cymbals, the yearning vocals. Then it steps into high gear for the chorus. It's a beautiful melody telling us terrible things, just how I like it. The feedback from the delay goes swoosh, and we're in a psychedelic land. This is a near-perfect psych song. The icing on the cake is the Hammond B3 organ solo. So nice. This record has many Baroque pop elements reminiscent of the Left Bank, but has more of a garage and prog rock sound. Never Too Far is another great folk psych treatment of a Hardin song. This one has a quicker tempo, almost a bit of a Turtles feel, but less contrived, played by a homegrown band. Scarlet Ribbons is a poetic song with tasty use of delay on the vocal. There are some great piano sounds here, and it ends on a lovely major 7 chord. Those with the right ears can sense that You Upset the Grace of the Living is another Tim Hardin song. And indeed, it is. The third and final one of the album. Here they were doing exactly what they set out to do, giving us the hard rock treatment of a sensitive folk singer. It's a spiritual, sad, instant reflection on lost innocence type song, perhaps the greatest theme in literature and psychedelic music. You know, it's like when you've been sucked into the void, and when you're spit out on the other side, you're not the same person. On side 2, we get a taste of sitar guitar, a sound that didn't make it too far beyond 1969. There are drone guitars, strummed acoustic guitars, swirly organs, glockenspiels. Then we have Can You Travel in the Dark Alone? It's a fun original song by guitarist Peter Sando. The lighthouse on the shore casts a beam on your door. Did you ever wonder, could you travel in the dark alone? Though I've heard it before, this album will take repeat listens to uncover and rediscover. Let the incense float across the room as you soak these heady sounds into the forgotten valleys of your mind. Nature Boy gives us some incredible fuzz guitar workouts, and then Tiffany Rings and Me About You were written by Bonner and Gordon, who wrote hits for the Turtles. You may recognize Me About You as a Turtles hit, but I like this rainy day version a little bit better. The Rain Parade's Emergency Third Rail Power Trip is such an absurd title that it sticks to your brain the way marshmallows stick to your teeth. This album soars into the stratosphere and stays there for the duration. The music is comfortable, atmospheric, and unpredictable enough to hold my interest. They started the genre known as Paisley Underground, a mix of bands who loved psychedelic rock, but had also just lived through the best years of early punk and new wave. Talking in My Sleep kicks off side 1, a dreamy jangle with a gentle melody suited for an overcast afternoon. Expressive fuzzy lead guitar throws spikes and sparks over a punchy bass groove. I thought I couldn't speak, and I wanted to go home. This is a near-perfect psychedelic song. It has a Notorious Bird Brothers type of vibe. This Can't Be Today is another banger with a bouncy rolling bass line, reverb-soaked vocals, keyboard drones, and flute sounds that finds its way into the atmosphere of the musical landscape. Yes, we get more fuzz guitar and magical mystery Farfisa organs that swirl from the ground up over a steady groove. This music takes me to a good place. The trees are so tall today. This is all a dream. Make it go away. I only want to sleep. This can't be today. I Look Around stays in that hazy Notorious Bird Brothers ballpark, this time with backwards guitars in the outfield. It's a mellow song grounded in a menacing intensity that comes from spiky guitars and earthy bass. 1 hour and a half ago takes us into solo Syd Barrett territory. It could almost be a Dukes of Stratosphere song, though this predates that project. The enjoyable melodies are intertwined with lead guitars that attack like daggers one minute and suddenly spread like spider webs the next. What She's Done to Your Mind has an early REM feel with, you guessed it, a jangly, compressed 12-string electric guitar. Look at Mary has a cool, creepy piano intro for this minor key tune that hops across a grassy knoll with the smoothness of a soul groove and a hint of surf, just for good measure. Saturday's Asylum reminds us that this would not be a psychedelic record without references to insanity. It's another timeless tune that sounds like it could be from the late 1960s or the early 90s. It picks up to a double-time jam before it ends abruptly. Kaleidoscope is another song here that reminds us what genre of music we're listening to. What I thought was there is now dissolving. Now that sounds like something you'd see in a literal rain parade. The album ends with Look Both Ways, the peppiest song here, and it has the energy of the early Rolling Stones. There's another odd similarity between Gandalf and the Rain Parade. Both bands started off as a more straightforward, Stonesy type band, and they both evolved into more dreamy territory to find their true signature sound. Now the Rain Parade album comes with this bonus disc here, and at first the bonus disc seems like it's only for superfans. Side 1 felt a little bit like homework. It's mostly 4-track demos of the album's songs, so they just kind of sound more lo-fi. But the more I listen to Side 2, the more I like it. I'd recommend not listening to the bonus disc on the same day as the proper album. They said the color is transparent yellow, but I'd call it more of a Mountain Dew. Speedway is a raunchy surf tune that shows us where their heads were at, in the big waves. It adds depth to the band's capabilities and might have been a nice change of pace on the album. The Bangles recorded this song under the title Bitchin' Summer. Side 2 makes me wonder why these songs were never recorded in a proper studio, because they are very, very good. Things happen, I guess. No Good Trying is a Syd Barrett cover. It really does sound like Syd's Pink Floyd playing this song at a club in Europe in 1967, as the liner notes suggest. Unexpected is a lo-fi live recording, and it's about as Velvet Underground as this band will ever sound. Not much of their other material goes in this direction. The bonus material shows us the full potential of the group's sonic range and its broader influences. Time Machine is a short demo of a song where the tape got recorded over. Oops. But hey, who hasn't done that at least once? This song sounds like early Pink Floyd or Tomorrow. Too bad there's not a better recording. But, you know, things happen. What You've Done is another demo that reminds me of the early Clientele recordings like It's Art Dad. I'm guessing the Clientele was somewhat influenced by the Rain Parade. In spite of the low fidelity, the bonus disc is worth a listen. The magic of the band is there. I just wish they'd made more proper recordings. It's so crazy how a modern iPhone can make a better sounding band recording these days, but you know, things were pretty hard back in 1982. Apparently the band began to disintegrate after their first tour supporting this album. Oh well, stuff happens. But on a high note, they did release more material after this. What's cool about these bands is we know so little about them, all we're left with is the music. I would highly recommend Emergency Third Rail Power Trip to anyone who likes 60s psych music. It feels right at home. I love this music, and I say, take my money. And let me ask the question you've all been wanting to know. Why do I review albums anyway? I guess to share the good stuff with like-minded people. The right music is good for the soul, and that means different things to different people. But art and music can answer questions that are not so easy to deal with. Like, is it ever okay to laugh at a funeral? Why do I always fall in love with someone I know is bad for me? Why are my fingers on one hand longer than the other? How many hours do you have to stare into the rain to find the meaning of life? And what potions do you need to open up your eyes? Well, my friends, music can answer most of these questions. It just takes thousands of hours of listening. some music answers these questions more eloquently. And that's the music that lights the fire in my mind. Sometimes it's just fun to sit back and escape into another world for 40 minutes or so and soak in the sounds of the psychedelic dream. Well, now I can sit on my high and mighty throne of pompous assholeness known as being a music snob and enjoy listening to obscure records at maximum volume in a room by myself late at night. The only thing that makes this party more fun is when my friends stop by and join my descent into the rabbit hole. It's on now, baby. It is on now.
Giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange, giant.